Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. This is the show where I take a look at every classic Doctor Who story, plus a bunch of Big Finish audio dramas, one episode a day, 7 days a week. And today, on the 22nd, this is the 22nd of July, 2018, I just finished watching part 1 of Robot, the debut Tom Baker story. And with the debut Tom Baker story, I can tell you exactly how long it takes for Tom Baker to really feel like the Doctor, and that is 5 minutes and 33 seconds into the episode is when he really starts to exude that sort of doctoriness that all the other the three previous Doctors have embodied. And what's interesting is that the part 1 of Robot, Robot as a story is rather interesting because it's sort of a last hurrah for the John Pertwee era, because we're still under the producership of Barry Letts. The story is written by Terrence Dicks, and we have a new script editor. It's Robert Holmes, but we still have very much that Pertwee feel. This is still a very standard unit story. The plot is really just these top secret security installations are being broken into, and as they're being broken into at something that's not human. Now, the audience sees that it's this through sort of a mosaic filter, but it kills people, and we don't quite know what it is. Obviously, the end of the cliffhanger is there's a giant robot, like, as the title suggests, which, a bit weird that they would name the story Robot and have the first cliffhanger be, oh my gosh, it's a robot. But other than that, the first episode is really good. A lot of times focused to getting Tom Baker suited into the role as the new Doctor. He just exudes this sort of manic glee at everything. He acts like, oh, don't I know you? Haven't we met before? To the Brigadier. And he sort of has that lapse of amnesia, and he's like the other Doctors. He doesn't quite like his initial appearance, but it eventually grows on him. This is, of course, we get the Doctor in the long scarf and the jacket and the hat, which is oddly enough this fourth costume he tries after a rather comedic sequence pretty early on in the episode, and it's a well-crafted sequence. A lot of the humor in this episode really works. Because we don't have much plot. We just have the introduction that Tom Baker's the new Doctor, and this whole robot is there's the robot. But we have some introduction of themes at least. Sarah Jane has after convincing the Doctor, he needs to say, she asks to get her a pass to this scientific think tank, just for a story, because she's a journalist. That's what she does. And in getting this pass, she goes, they figure out that there's this guy, this Professor J.P. Kettlewell, who left the think tank and basically was like, yeah, no, there's nothing there. He's kind of become a hermit and kind of crazy old guy, and sort of is just sort of now works on alternative energy. And the director, Mrs. Winters, who is she's kind of comes off as crazy. She just comes off as noise because Sarah Jane thinks that the guy the Doctor she's with is actually the director, but no, she's the director. And she sort of just has this very stiff portrayal of just like this. She sort of rubs you the wrong way. Runs a tight top secret tight ship. With full of secrets. It's everything is top secret. Nothing will get out without our knowledge. So you really get the character down, and Sarah, you really, this is an episode that follows Sarah Jane quite a bit. And she gets to lead the episode, which is really quite good. Liz Sladen plays the part very well, and is very enjoyable to watch as Sarah Jane in this particular episode. She does just a really good job. But you have the Brigadier and Sergeant, and just sort of, and Harry Sullivan, who is he is just he's a doctor recently naval doctor now working for a unit, and he's he's sort of comic relief. He doesn't, he's not the guy who's like, oh yes, I'm here to actually do stuff. No, he's very much there for the comedic side of the episode, and not, he's trying to look after the doctor, who just runs circles around him, and a bunch of comedic scenes. A lot of the episode is just devoted to comedy and getting the doctor to, where he, into the plot, and Tom Baker's still sort of settling into the role. He doesn't quite know how he's going to play it yet, and there's just a couple points where he doesn't quite work out. But also you have, what's something that's really good is that you have the direction by Christopher Barry. Christopher Barry does an excellent job directing this story, the first episode, and you really get to feel that this is, there is a good mystery here. And again, the cliffhanger direction is also just great. We have a good cliffhanger, a good way to end the episode. So all in all, Robot Part 1 is just an all-around a good start to the Tom Baker era. So I'm going to give Robot Part 1 an 8 out of 10. Alright, it is the 23rd of July, 2018, and I just finished watching Part 2 of Robot. And Part 2 of Robot is a bit... Well, Part 2 of Robot, it's not a bad episode. It's good. But it's where a lot of the big cracks in Robot start to come to the forefront. First off, you have this big meeting with J.P. Kettlewell, who's like, yes, the robot couldn't have tried to kill you, there couldn't be a robot because I told them to have it dismantled. Well, that's a dumb mistake, because you don't just make sure it gets dismantled before you leave. Don't just be like, oh no. But you have, the first scene is nice. You have, Miss Winters and Jellicoe, essentially threatening Sarah Jane with blackmail if she tells anybody about the robot. Also, they tell the robot to destroy her, and it can't because, its prime directive is to help humanity. It's not allowed to harm humanity. That's a big no-no. We'll get back to that, of course, because they take out that circuit. They eventually get it to harm people, and that's part of the conceit. And it's very obvious that Sarah Jane sees through the bluff. She immediately goes and talks to the doctor and the brigadier about it. There's a giant robot, and we need to stop it. She also shows concern for the robot, but it's the robot itself where the episode falls down. One, it's not the problem that the scientists built a robot. The big problem is that the idea is that the scientist built a robot out of a metal he developed called living metal that can grow, which is just, I'm sorry, that just kind of breaks the illusion that it can grow, and it feels like it's just there because they want to do a King Kong style story and have the giant robot later on, grow to a bigger height. Also, the design of the robot is, it's an unfortunate design, because with the way it's realized, it's a decent design, kind of, but the way it's realized, it doesn't look solid. The claws look like they're about to fall off. The bottom half in particular looks like it was made just so that the actor inside it could be walking around. And it looks, the massive shoulder pads, it screams poor design choice. It doesn't, the problem is this robot is supposed to be one that's supposed to help humanity. And honestly, it doesn't look very good. And I know this isn't the only time that robots are the villain, because there's the robots of death later on. And so we're kind of spoiled with the robots of death, because those robots actually look really good. Whereas in comparison, this one it looks chintzy. It looks like, again, the two claws are going to fall off. You have a lot more break-ins, a lot more deduction. You also have the problem with the actor inside has to move very slowly. So you have this cliffhanger at the end of the episode where the doctor is called to Kettlewell's house because the robot is there, and It's obviously the trap. The doctor knows it's a trap. He tells Sarah Jane it's a trap. He goes anyway. And you have about 3 to 4 minutes of the doctor being chased by the robot. And it's just not a decently shot chase sequence. Like, you can tell the robot isn't solid enough to do this chase. It's not good enough to do this chase. The chase sequence doesn't work because you have the robot so big and so bulky. Also, there's some other really good stuff in here. There's some good stuff in here. Sergeant Benton is great. He's promoted in one of his final appearances. He does an amazing job in this episode. Sarah Jane is great. As she still gets to be sort of the investigative journalist, and she even gets props. She connects the whole Scientific Reform Society, which it's this meeting where they essentially say like, "Hey, that's basically, hey, we're fascists. We want to control everything for the good of mankind, including what you're allowed to wear." Something a bit off about that. Never tell someone what they're allowed to wear. That's not a good idea. And Sarah Jane obviously, and she's even probably going to sneak into the meeting in the next episode, but it's obvious that they're the villains. It's just not well done. It's the robot itself is where the episode falls apart, and it's that cliffhanger. Whenever the robot's on screen in full, there's no way to shoot it that makes it look threatening. Like, I mean, I think they just needed to maybe do some redesigns, maybe not have to go for a fully human look, and maybe find a way to get it so it looks a bit, so it would look a bit different on screen, because the way it looks now, it just doesn't work. So I'm going to give Robot Part 2 a 6 out of 10, because again, it's a good episode. It's just brought down by pretty bad production values. Alright, it is the 24th of July, 2018, and I just finished watching Part 3 of Robot. And Part 3 of Robot is, well, it introduces some really good ideas. You have more explanation of the Scientific Reform Society, where they want to see the world reformed in their own image. Because, of course, they're evil, though they're not quite as evil as you'd think. They're not, the most supervillainous evil, but they're still pretty darn evil. They're led by a lot of people at the think tank, including Miss Winters. And what's quite interesting about them is that they are fascists. They are extreme fascists. And you have Sarah Jane actually getting to be an investigative journalist and going in and being like, all right, I want to know more. I'm going to try to figure this out. Of course, she gets herself captured, and, well, they're going to kill her, but then they decide we're just going to take her prisoner. The SRS, they have procedures. Their procedures for what their plans are just dumb. The robot won't kill Sarah Jane, which is fine, because she showed it kindness. So it's imprinted an Oedipus complex onto Sarah Jane, which is just, I'm going to say it now, freaking gross, because one, we already know that Freudian psychology is not the best psychology. It's not accurate to real life. And it leads to some very, very gross things. But you have the unit doing a good old-fashioned raid. So basically, and that's basically the plot. And the plot is that the robot destroys a unit tank at the end. It's menacing. It's supposed to be terrifying. But we're going to talk about where the plot and the direction and a lot of this story just falls flat, completely. The effects are bad. The robot is bad. The robot is shot on a green screen. It starts to fringe itself because the metal is picking up the color of the screen because of reflections. It doesn't work. And again, just because it's a green screen that also on a metal robot, and the robot costume still looks bad. It looks even worse. You have unit soldiers shooting at it. Here's the thing. The thing moves really slow. It's lumbering slowly to the getaway car. Unit could grab them. There is no tension here. It doesn't make sense why there would be any sort of tension. and you have the internal logic of, oh, the Professor Kettlewell is evil, except he's been helping it. What? Like, why doesn't he just not? The evil twist doesn't work. And the tank at the end, it's a toy tank. And I mean, I'm not talking like, no, like a toy Matchbox car size tank. This is not an actual tank. This is a small little piece of a child's toy. It's not good. It's just things like this that take you right out of the episode and take you just, you can't, you don't enjoy it. Robot Part 3 is not a good episode. It has good ideas, it has a decent plot, but even except the logic is being inconsistent, completely inconsistent, internally inconsistent. And the robot just doesn't look good. You also have this thing like, well, we're just gonna blow up the world. Why? Like, I'm asking myself, why is anything happening in this story? Like, there's no... villains don't make sense. I mean, Harry Sullivan gets to go and be a spy, which gets him off screen for most of the episode, so you don't really have that much interesting. Again, it's taking the interesting stuff and then miring it in bad production values, and I get it. This was done at the end of John Pertwee's last season, before Philip Hinchcliffe took over with a full new budget. But come on, you could have done a better... a couple more script edits, a bit of rewriting here and there, and you could have fixed a lot of these problems, and I could probably look past the bad robot if it weren't for just the plot inconsistencies and just the way it's badly shot. So I'm going to give Robot Part 3 a 4 out of 10. Alright, it is the 25th of July, 2018, and I just finished watching Part 4 of Robot. By far the weakest episode of Robot, bringing the story to a close, to a rather lackluster, limp conclusion, with not much really to go by. So I'm going to start by being brutally honest. I'm going to start by getting the good stuff out of the way. The episode really feels like a Pertwee episode, which isn't a bad thing. It feels like a Pertwee episode with Tom Baker in the helm. Again, not necessarily a bad thing to be, but when you're writing a story for a new doctor, you should probably try to cater to what that doctor's going to be, and not just do this whole, oh, he's a new doctor, so we're really just doing a Pertwee story. Like, there's a point where the doctor's in a lab trying to build create a chemical to defeat the robot, and it's things like that you really feel like that this is just one of those stories where it's not meant to be just a Doctor Who story. It is in fact just it's not a new... This is not a John Pertwee story, but this is just we're just continuing with some of the old, and it's really a shame. There is some good stuff. The final scene where the Doctor and Sarah Jane, the Doctor convinces Sarah Jane to come with her again, even sort of apologizing for the fact that the robot had to die, is great. It's well written, it's performed very well by Tom Baker and Liz Sladen, and then when Harry comes in and they all go off together, that's also great. Like, where they sort of play it as a joke on Harry. It's well done. It's not the story is not poorly done. It's just it's not one of those, we're doing this amazing thing where everything is gonna be our total conclusion. Like, we're not giving it a full we're not giving it just we're giving it the full treatment, and it's going to be an interesting conclusion, even if the conclusion isn't very good. Like they do the whole King Kong thing, where King Kong is where the robot is in place of the monkey and captures Sarah Jane, and that's okay. It's done all right, even with the sadness that is they use a little doll and they use bad green screen. It's okay. It's an okay idea. It isn't perfect, but it's not the worst thing to ever happen. Um, it's one of those things where you just have to have um, you have to have this. You have the idea that the story is going to be going forward, and because we have the story going forward, we have the ending, all there. None of it is done to be, you know, um, bad, but it's good. It gives you the feeling that there really is a full conclusion here. You have you still have the Doctor, saving the day. It just sort of happens without incident. Like there isn't as much of a completed story. Like it's one where you have the big ending of the story, uh, essentially just there to be a conclusion. It's one of those things where where the where the story really it's a story that's really there for the audience to enjoy. It doesn't have too much plot in this episode. It just sort of meanders to an end. Professor, like the SRS is defeated within the first 5 minutes, and the rest is just defeating the robot, and it's dragged. We are dragging this out, and again, the green screen is bad. The growing effects horribly done. It's Doctor Who trying to be ambitious and failing. So at least that is good. Like we have something good about that. Like it's trying something, even if it doesn't quite work well. It tries, and it does a good job, of trying. So I'm gonna give Robot as a part 4, a 3 out of 10. And we add up the scores of Robot to give Robot a final score of 5.5 out of 10. Thank everybody for watching this installment of the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you next time when we take a look at the first Philip Hinchcliffe produced story with The Ark in Space.